The Rugby World Cup 2023 has come to its end and the Springboks making it back-to-back wins, 12 points to 11, one of the lowest scoring games that we have seen in the playoff rugby, but the Springboks, that is their third game in a row that they have won by a margin of one. So it just shows how close some of these games have been, but also that the Springboks, when they are put in that scenario of a close game, know how to get the job done. And statistically, looking through almost every single stat, the All Blacks did have the advantage when it came to the attack, but the Springboks, they weren't able to score a try in this game. But those four crucial penalties of Handré Pollard helps them over the line towards their World Cup. In this review, we'll be looking through at some of the standout players and also some of the stats to do with this World Cup final. First of all, massive congratulations to South Africa for what they've been able to accomplish throughout this Rugby World Cup. They now become the first side in history to win 4 World Cups and also the second side in history to win 2 back-to-back. But the key players for South Africa, you can't look much further than Peter Steph du Toit. That man, for me, had the best performance we have ever seen. 28 tackles made, and most of them weren't even soft tackles. They were big, hard, solid hits, putting the All Blacks under pressure. And any time that he was running at the line, he was able to shut down the All Blacks attack. This was causing handling errors. This was causing miscommunication. And overall, I feel Peter Steph du Toit, like I said, best game that he could have had in this World Cup. Damien Willemse, it was a good choice to have him in the starting lineup rather than Willie le Roux at number 15, having 69 metres carried, 3 offloads along the way, and was very solid at the back for the Springboks. When it came to that kicking game, we didn't see a huge amount of kicks from the ABs, but when they did decide to, Willemse was back there in the 22, booting it to touch and always getting it down towards their halfway line. And then also Handré Pollard, 12 points on the board for him. Every point of this World Cup final for the Springboks, and he was certainly the difference maker when you look at how close the scoreboard was. But for the Springboks, they did lose Bongi Mbonambi early, so that meant that the sub did have to be made of Deon Fourie out onto the park after only a few minutes. Now for that, Shannon Frizzell did receive a yellow card for taking Mbonambi out of the breakdown illegally. It remained as a yellow, although that was not the case for someone else later on in the game. But Deon Fourie, straight away lineouts were struggling for the Springboks, but I don't know whether or not it was completely Deon Fourie's fault or whether it was just that little bit of extra pressure that the All Blacks were putting on. I felt Retallick was extremely strong when it came to the line-out opportunities to steal, getting 4 in total for the All Blacks. We also saw the Springboks steal 1 line-out, but 6 out of 10 for line-out success, a lot lower than the Boks would normally like. We then saw a yellow card awarded to Sam Cane for a high tackle on Jesse Creel. Now the TMO reviewed it and did upgrade it to the red, which meant that the All Blacks would be without their skipper and without the 15 for the rest of the final. South Africa also receiving 2 yellow cards, one of which was Siya Kolisi, who I feel had a pretty rough second half. He blew the opportunity to score the first try of the match for the Springboks by getting selfish, not willing to pass it on the outside, which would have been an easy run-in for Kutle Arendse, who himself was very close to scoring just a few minutes prior. And then the other yellow card was given to Cheslin Colby for a deliberate knockdown later on in the game, and he was a nervous man throughout those final moments. The All Blacks throwing absolutely everything into their attacks, but it was just that last pass that the All Blacks were messing up, which didn't allow them too many try-scoring opportunities. Just the 1 try in this match for Beauden Barrett, scored it around that 58-minute mark, which seemed like the All Blacks were back on track, but a missed kick from Mo'unga, then a missed penalty from Jordie Barrett a bit later on, meant that the score remained at 11. 56% possession though for the All Blacks throughout the full match, 63% in the first half, although territory did go in favour of the Springboks with it being 53%. The running meters, 441 for New Zealand compared to the 359 of the Boks. 36 defenders beaten for New Zealand, 13 beaten by the Boks, but 7 offloads. They were actually doing very nicely to keep that ball alive. The Springboks, they were also playing that territory game late in the second half, forcing the All Blacks further back. I believe they had about 3 or 4 drop kick attempts throughout this contest. Unfortunately, none of them quite coming off the way they would have liked. But it was a perfect example for the Springboks of, even in a game that in most of the statistics they weren't winning, they were still able to have more points on the board, and that is the main thing. At the end of the day, I know that the referees were being questioned a little bit in this game. Wayne Barnes and his officiating team, huge amount of pressure on them to make the right decisions. It seemed shaky at times, as if it was a little bit rushed. At the end of the day, when there's only 1 point difference in a contest like this, there was still multiple opportunities for both sides to be able to win this game. Like I mentioned, if New Zealand had got one more kickover, they could have found themselves in the lead. If they were able to score one more try without a handling error, they could have got themselves the lead as well. So yes, the refereeing throughout this whole Rugby World Cup has been questioned heavily, but unfortunately it's just one of those ones that you have to make sure you try and take the referee out of the game, and I don't think either of these sides did that too well throughout this contest. 10 penalties against the Springboks with 2 yellow cards. New Zealand 5 penalties conceded. They actually didn't concede a single penalty in that second 40 minutes that I know of, but 1 yellow and 1 red card it was to Sam Cane. Not a smart move, tackling a man round his ears when you know the law and how strict it can be. Springboks making 209 tackles throughout this fixture, missing 36, but overall their tackling was immense. The All Blacks putting together quite a few nice phases, but every once in a while when they tried anything slightly more extravagant, that seemed to be when the handling errors were sneaking in. We saw quite a few scrums, but also quite a few advantages for knock-ons in this match as well. But now we have to wait for 2027, unfortunately. Still another 4 years till the next World Cup. We can start the countdown. Going to be taking place in Australia. Can the Boks make history and win 3 in a row? That will be a big question. Both of these sides, they will be losing a lot of players, either retirement by 2027 or for the All Blacks. A lot of players going overseas, such as Aaron Smith, Beauden Barrett, Richie Mo'unga, etc. So there's going to be a big rebuilding phase for, I believe, both of these sides. We've got to remember as well, Naniba, he is going to be going overseas. Same with Rassie Erasmus. So losing both coaches, but now walking away with a World Cup to his name. Looks pretty good on the resume. Of course, a lot of coaches would love to have that as well. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning into this review. At the end of the day, this World Cup has been absolutely awesome to cover on the channel. 48 games from 48 we did the live commentary for. My vocal cords probably hate me for it, but I do not regret 1 second. It's been awesome meeting so many people from all around the world on the streams. And I always say it, without you guys on these streams, they just aren't the same. So it is a big thank you to anyone who's watching this video, anyone who's tuned into a stream. You certainly have made this World Cup special. But thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let me know what you thought of this match in the comments down below. Peter Steph-Toy, I think, is pretty confirmed as man of the match. But other than him, who else would you say was a slight contender for this Rugby World Cup final? But I will see you all for the next one.